So here we go. Gonna actually start the thing up today. Well, try to. My buddy Brian came by to help me out, tied up some loose ends here. Kind of just been going over, making sure all the wiring connections are done, all the hoses are hooked up. It's got power steering fluid, got fuel, got transmission fluid, all those sort of things. So we're to a point now that I think we're about ready to start the thing up. I'm gonna cycle the fuel pump a few times, check it for leaks, that sort of stuff. And then fingers crossed that this thing fires up, doesn't make any sort of like clank, clank, clank sounds or blow up or throw a rod out the side of the block or something. So the Holley system set up, ready to go. It's set up for the LS1, the Snake Eater 850 injectors with a turbo, and I think we are ready to go. So I'll kind of walk through what I've done here and what Brian and I have tied up today, and then we'll go ahead and start this thing up. Okay, so I think since you guys last saw it, I went ahead and finished plumbing in the wastegate and got it tied back into the downpipe. It's all wrapped up and heat shielded now. I put some heat shielding underneath the floor of the truck where the 4-inch pipe goes underneath there. The wiring right now is just kind of set together. We've got some, just kind of clamped on ground connections, that sort of thing, just to see if it's going to work. If it does and starts up and works okay, I don't have any wiring connections to go through and correct, then I'll come back and re-loom and re-wrap this wire and kind of put it in a place where it's out of sight and looks better. But if I had to go back and correct it or change something, I didn't have to pull the loom back off that wire and stuff. There's no cooling system hooked up yet. There's no coolant in the motor. Just has fuel and the essentials. So we'll get, if we start it, we won't run it for very long, just to see if it'll start and kind of make some cool noises here, and then we'll shut it off and then hook the cooling system back up. Blah blah blah. Rob talks too much on YouTube. Well, I don't see anything leaking too bad.
I don't see anything on my side.
Okay, I'll cycle that key a couple more times, make sure we don't have any air in the system. What's that noise? All right, ready? Moment of truth.
Send it.
I didn't touch the gas pedal. It just ran and idled.
Sounded great.
Well, so far not too bad. No clanking sounds, no fires, no explosions.
Nothing coming out of the exhaust.
All right, I'll start it up again. Oh, maybe it's mad now. Well, it runs, but kind of disappointed. It seems to kind of run like crap. I'm not sure if I got a vacuum leak. Maybe need to work on that tuning a little bit or something. I guess we'll kind of let it cool off here with some coolant in it, try to hook the cooling system up, and see if we can't get this thing to start up and come up to temperature, and see if the ECU will learn a little bit itself, or if we need to go in and adjust the tuning or something at the idle and see if we can't get it to run a little bit better at idle and off idle. It seems like the timing's just a little off still. Okay, so now we're going to try to make this old Ford truck radiator work with this new LS motor. So there's some different sizes of fittings that we have to kind of adapt here. So my solution for this, and I'm sure you could probably do this like 100 different ways, is to use some OEM Ford stuff with just some generic Gates hoses and try to adapt these size with some of these adapters that I found. So I'll post links to all this stuff. What we're trying to do here is go from the bottom of the Ford radiator, which is like a 2-inch outlet, and we've got to convert that to 1.5 inches where it actually goes into the LS water pump. So to do that, I found actually a fuel tank filler neck adapter here, which should be fine, I think, for coolant. But all it does is convert a 2-inch down to 1.5 inches. So we'll just put this splice in this hose here and just be able to put this hose together. And then on the top side, the top of the Ford radiator is 1.75 inches. So I bought this piece of silicone, 1.75 inches, to slide over there, which we'll have to cut it and kind of change the shape a little bit. And then the other problem we have with the LS motor is it has the steam port in it, or the steam vent system. So again, ICT Billet came to the rescue. They make some pretty innovative products, right? So they've got this adapter with the 1/8 NPT hole already threaded in it for you. So you step down from the 1.5 inches, or sorry, 1.75 inches, down to, I believe this is 1.25 inches. I think that the billet thing, the ICT billet might be 1.5 inches. But my plan here is to put an 1/8 inch by 1/4 inch male hose barb in this side and be able to run a small hose from the upper cooling system to the steam port down on the engine, and again plug this into, this is an OEM hose out of like a Chevy Silverado with a 5.3 in it. I just snagged this out of a junkyard, and I think it's going to kind of make my 90 for me. So we're only going to use a little bit of this hose. I'm just going to cut it and scrap the rest of it. But this should actually fit onto the engine on the water pump just fine, and then we'll make that adapt into this ICT billet adapter here. So I'll post links to all this stuff down below so you guys can kind of check out what I did. With that said, I'll pull this truck down and we'll go ahead and try to start cutting some hoses and making this thing fit. Okay, so we're gonna have to go from the bottom side of the radiator, which is a 2-inch, and then we've got to go up to this port. So I changed this port out. Normally the thermostat housing here actually points, I think, out at like a 45 degree with the OEM one. But with the way the belt's set up here and this turbo I'm running now, I went ahead and got a straight adapter, and that allows me to come straight out and then make a 90, you know, and clear the brackets and clear this fan I have here. So first thing we're going to do is run this Gates 20611 hose, and this is a 2-inch ID hose it's going to plug on. It's obvious if I just plug it on here, it's too long, it's going to hit the engine. So you kind of figure out like where to cut this hose, and so I'd guess somewhere, I don't know, about like this is probably fine. So we'll just kind of put a mark here and say we'll chop off this section of hose and then test fit it back on here. This hose has a spring inside of it. Can we see that? I'm not sure. So I'll try not to cut into that spring. I guess if I do, I'll have to just move it back into the hose a little bit more. We'll see how that goes. And so I just cut this hose. I guess I'll save this in case I want to try to return it to O'Reilly's. I can just tape it back together or something. Alright, so this will go on here, hopefully. And now I've got to do something to bring this 1.5 inch side down. So for that, I've got a Gates 21660 hose, and this should be 1.5 inch diameter. Again, it just makes a 90, so I'm going to try to make it so it adapts this other hose here via this coupler slash reducer adapter, which looks like it'll actually work, I think, pretty good. I think I'm just going to put these together. Maybe I'll put some lubricant on that in case I want to take it apart in a second. Some of this glass cleaner seems like good lubricant. Yeah, there we go. Okay, and so same thing, we're just gonna take a rough estimate of where I think this should go. And we're gonna cut this upper hose at. Looks like it's pretty straight. There's a nice even gap going behind the radiator fan. The hose isn't sitting at a weird angle this way or jammed against the radiator. And let's take a guess at, and then I'm lopping this thing off right here. Same as before. All right, a little more glass cleaner lubrication for a quick test fit. Oh yeah, that should be good in the cooling system. Okay, looks like it'll work out pretty well. I'll get some hose clamps and just kind of hose clamp this one together. Okay, so for this one, we're just going, making this little short run here. So I'm gonna just use this OEM Silverado hose and then convert it or adapt it to this piece of silicone. I think, what did he say this was, 1.5 inches? And so again, we'll kind of just eyeball this piece of silicone and cut it back where I think it should go. And then I want to utilize this factory 90-degree bend that the Silverado had. So it'll kind of just fit like this, fit like that. I think it'll be good. Okay, so that hose is cut, and now we're gonna put this adapter in it with the barb sticking out for our steam port. I guess what I'll try to do is maybe cut this a little bit shorter to raise this steam port up a little bit higher in the system. I'm not sure if it needs to be the high point in the system or not, but we'll see what we can do to make it a little bit higher. Yeah, so I think to make this work, I'm gonna raise this connection up a little bit higher just so we can use a little bit more of this 90 in this OEM hose. We're not trying to jam a connector down the middle of this turn here. So I'll take that one and shorten it a little bit for the top and raise this union up a little bit higher here. So back after tightening the hoses up, getting everything ready to go. So what we did is put hose clamps on everything. We ran the air bleed valve hose over to the bleeders, the bleeder port that comes out of the underside of the manifold there. So everything looks like it's holding pressure. It's actually going to work out just fine. We're actually going to start it up, try to warm the truck up, bring it up to temperature, and see if we can't purge the rest of the air out of the system, and see if that Holley won't do a little bit of a self-learn and try to set the idle. The idle seemed like it was kind of low before, so we took the throttle body off and actually adjusted the hard throttle body stop adjustment screw on the butterfly there. So we're hoping that that kind of brings the idle up a little bit and quits relying on the idle air control motor quite so much, so we're a little more in line with the Holley parameters. So with that, we're gonna go ahead and fire this thing up and see what it does. Okay, ready? drive here. We'll pull out on the road, see how this thing runs, see if it shifts, see if it drives. Brian's gonna fly the drone today, get some cool drone footage of this thing. So far, watching the Holley Terminator here, everything's good. All the parameters look like they're running well. It's like 200 degrees, both the fans are on. Uh-oh, I touched stuff. Battery's charging, air fuel looks alright. This is just idling in gear, so we'll keep an eye on this. Kind of a mess in here, but we'll just run down the road a little bit. Did it shift? Hey, it shifted. No good. It shifted again. At third. Brakes. We got some brakes. Got a rearview mirror. Huh. Again, the turbo spool up.
That sounds wicked.
It seems to run well. It like runs, the steering wheel's not straight. I don't know who put that on there, but it steers well. Whoa, hang on. Things are getting crazy. Definitely stinks. It's super rich.
Yeah. Well, you can smell that downpipe burning off too.
Yeah, nothing kind of smoky, kind of nasty. We'll kind of just make the block here. Oh, there you go. I'm in a Porsche. Don't mind me. Not more money than you guys do. Seems like it's going to be a good driving truck.
What happens if you downshift it?
We'll kind of do a stop sign.
Alright. I've always found that you just send it right out of the gate. Whatever happens, happens.
It's going to break.
If it's gonna break, it's gonna break.
Well, nothing broke.
Well, somebody was drawing on the street back there. That's weird. Woo! Woo!
Still needs some tuning. It kind of is lazy to get started, but once it spools up and goes, it really takes off and goes. It seems like it's got a lot of power up top once that turbo starts to spool in. Not quite as rowdy off the bottom end as the 390 was, but I think if we could tune it a little bit, we'll probably get there.